Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the video. I hope your day is going great. Mine's been awesome so far. Today we're going to be discussing these four teams: the Washington Justice, the Dallas Fuel, the Hangzhou Spark, and Paris Eternal. They all have something in common. They're super unlucky. And you guys might be asking, what am I talking about, Michael? Why are these four teams so unlucky going into Season 1? Well, I'm going to answer that for you guys in this video, but before we get into that, I want to cover one exciting piece of news coming out of the contender scene, and that is that Second Wind and First Generation both have been invited directly to the next contender season. Now, some of you guys might not have known the changes that Blizzard made to contenders going into this year. Before, it used to be the top 8 teams who made the playoffs would advance to the next season no matter what, but they changed that and they said no matter what, only academy teams will be moving on to the next season, while everyone else, no matter who you are, even if you won the tournament, you would not be able to move on. You will still have to go through trials. And when this information came out from Blizzard, I was still a coach of Kongarna during Season 3 of Contenders, so it was very unfortunate news for us and all the other teams that came through trials. No matter how good we did, we would still not make it through. Obviously, we didn't do that great on Kongarna, it didn't matter for us, but for teams like Second Win and First Gen who did make the playoffs, it was pretty crappy knowing that they were going to have to go through trials once again just to make it back in. But now it seems like that has changed. Blizzard has made up their mind and decided to directly invite First Gen and Second Wind back into contenders for Season 4. This was tweeted out from Made, who was a coach of Second Wind. He said this: "Can confirm both First Gen and us, Second Wind, have been invited directly back to contenders." Wow, so this is awesome news coming out for Second Wind and First Generation. Both of them did make it to the playoffs. They faced off against each other in the first round, and it was an incredible match. Second Wind narrowly took it 3-2, and eventually did move on to Fusion University, the powerhouse that nobody can stop, and they did lose. But overall, Second Wind had an incredible season. They went 5-0 in their group, defeating multiple academy teams: LA Gladiators Legion, Team Envious, XL2 Academy. Sorry, had to laugh there. And they went 5-0. So big congratulations to them. I'm excited to see them move into contenders without going through trials. That was kind of a dumb rule that Blizzard came up with, so it's nice to see that they kind of went back on it. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on now to the main topic of the video, which is the reason why most of you guys are probably here. Why are the Hangzhou Spark, the Dallas Fuel, the Washington Justice, and the Paris Eternal all so unlucky? What is this thing that they have in common? Well, it is something that I've mentioned already multiple times for the Washington Justice, and is the main reason why I am ranking the Washington Justice so low at number 19 in my power rankings, is their schedules. Going into Stage 1 of the Overwatch League, these four teams have the toughest schedule. Some a little more than the others, but overall, they all have an extremely hard schedule. And today we're going to be going through all four of these teams' first stage schedules and comparing them to other teams. So just to get this out of the way real quick, because some of you guys are probably asking, why is this so important? Overall, at the end of the day, every single team is going to end up playing each other, right? Well, yes, you're right there. But going into Stage 1, this is the beginning of the Overwatch League. This is often where team seasons are set in stone. Typically, when you start off really bad, it's hard to come back from it. Players easily let their mentality slip and they go into a huge slump, and overall the team just doesn't know how to get out of it. Sometimes they can fix it. For example, the Dallas Fuel, they slumped real hard for the first 3 stages, but once they got into Stage 4, they did figure it out and they got out of that slump. But the main point is, it lasted 3 stages, and by the time we got to the 4th stage, again, Dallas Fuel's season was set in stone. They were done. And for a really good example here, let's go ahead and look at the Overwatch League Season 1 Stage 1 final standing. As you guys can see, the bottom 4 teams here were the San Francisco Shock, the Dallas Fuel, Florida Mayhem, and Shanghai Dragon. Guess what? These were the only 4 teams going into Stage 4 that had no chance at making the playoffs. None of them did. But guess what? Every single team above that still had a chance in Stage 4 to make the playoffs. So as you guys can see, if you have a bad performance in Stage 1, it's very likely that you're not going to have a chance at making the playoffs come Stage 4 unless you can turn it around early. But the problem is that it's really hard to turn around, because after losing so much at the beginning of the season, you lose all of your confidence, your mentality goes all the way down, all you can think about is bad things, there's no trust between you, your teammates, or your coaches. So yeah, it takes a lot of time, and yes, maybe by Stage 4 it can be fixed, which we did see for the Dallas Fuel and the San Francisco Shock. They had pretty decent Stage 4s, but by that time came around, it was too late. They were out of the playoffs. So by now you guys probably understand, yes, the first stage and schedules are super important. A team that has a very easy schedule during stage 1 is going to have a much easier time making the playoffs, even if they're a worse team compared to one of these guys who is going to be facing all the hard teams. I did rank them from the easiest schedule to the hardest schedule, so starting off with the easiest schedule out of these 4, we have the Hangzhou Spark. By the way, none of these are easy schedules, they just have the easiest. Alright, so here we are with the 2019 schedule. We'll switch it on to the Hangzhou Spark. And we're looking at the first week. They start off in the opener with the Shanghai Dragons, who I do believe is going to be a decent team. Obviously top 12 because I haven't ranked them yet. Moving on, we have the LA Valiant, very clearly one of the strongest teams going into the next season. This is pretty tough so far. Then moving on to the next week, they're going up against the Houston Outlaws, who might be their easiest matchup out of everybody, and then their fourth game is against the former champions, London Spitfire. That's going to be a very tough one. Then on this week, it's just brutal. They have the San Francisco Shock and then the LA Gladiators, both right after the London Spitfire. And then moving into the fourth week, they do have the Toronto Defiant, who I do think are going to be a pretty strong team. They have great coaching and a solid roster. And that's going to be the end of their first stage. Now, a big reason why I think their schedule is so hard is because they have double headers 3 weeks in a row against some of the best teams in the league. Shanghai Dragons, we don't know where they stand yet, but we know LA Valiant, we know London Spitfire, and we know the Gladiators and San Francisco Shock are all going to be very good. So 4 matches in a row against some of the best teams in the league, all back-to-back on busy weeks. This is going to be very hard for the Hangzhou Spark, and I don't see them coming out very well at the end of this. By the time they get to Toronto Defiant, who might be one of their weaker matches, they're going to be beat down by all these good teams and could very well lose this one. So that's the Hangzhou Spark. Let's go ahead and move on now to the third hardest schedule, and that's going to be the Dallas Fuel. And we're starting off with week 1 against the San Francisco Shock. Then moving on to the second match, they have Seoul Dynasty. And the second week, they're going up against the Guangzhou Charge and then the Philadelphia Fusion. In the third week, they have the Shanghai Dragons. Going into the fourth week, they have the Shanghai Dragons again back-to-back. And in the fifth week, they ended off with the Boston Uprising. Let's go back to the very first week. Looking at all the teams that the Dallas Fuel faces, I ranked every single one of them higher on the power rankings than the Dallas Fuel, besides the Boston Uprising, who is their last match. And remember what I said, guys. When they have to go through the San Francisco Shock, Seoul Dynasty, Guangzhou Charge, Philadelphia Fusion, then the Shanghai Dragons twice, they finally get to play the Boston Uprising. But by the time this happens, they're going to be tired and worn out getting beat down by all these teams. Sure, Shanghai Dragons maybe not going to be incredibly good, but I do think they'll be a little bit better than the Dallas Fuel, and they'll probably win one and lose one of these matches. As for all of these ones, I don't see Dallas Fuel picking up any of them. Maybe one against the Guangzhou Charge, but they will not beat Philly, they will not beat San Francisco, and they will not beat Seoul Dynasty. It's going to be another tough start for the Dallas Fuel going into this season, and that's a reason why I did rank them at 13 earlier today as well. And now moving on to the second hardest schedule going into the Overwatch League, we have the Paris Eternal. Starting off with week 1, their opening match is going to be against the champions, London Spitfire. Going into the second week, they do have the LA Gladiators. Now, the fortunate thing for them is that they do have a lot of time to prepare for these two matches, since they aren't double headers in the same week. Then moving on to week 3, we have the Atlanta Reign. Again, they have a lot of time to prepare for this, but going into week 4, this is where it gets really tough for them. They have the Vancouver Titans and the San Francisco Shock. Then in week 5, they have the Justice and the Philadelphia Fusion. Now, it's pretty clear that the London Spitfire and the LA Gladiators are going to beat Paris Eternal. And by the time that Paris gets to Atlanta here, who knows who's going to win this one? If we take a look at Atlanta Reign's schedule real quick, theirs is a little bit easier. They start off with the Florida Mayhem, then the Philadelphia Fusion, and then the Toronto Defiant. 2 out of the 3 games here are definitely winnable for them, so by the time they get to the Paris Eternal, they're going to have a lot more confidence than Paris Eternal, because they're going to get wrecked by 2 really giant teams. And then moving on to week 4, obviously going up against the Titans, former runaway roster, they're going to be way more experienced than Paris Eternal. And the San Francisco Shock, don't even have to talk about that one. Washington Justice, they might be able to pick this one up, but the last match against Philadelphia Fusion, probably not going to go in favor of the Paris Eternal. And now moving on to the hardest schedule out of any team in the Overwatch League, and this one is just, it's ridiculous. It's so unreal. I can't believe Washington Justice got this unlucky. They start off in the opener with New York Excelsior, then they start off in the second week with the London Spitfire, then in the third week, they have Philadelphia Fusion, San Francisco Shock, and in the 5th week, they have Seoul Dynasty. this could very easily be the top 5 teams going into Season 2. New York Excelsior, London Spitfire, Philadelphia Fusion, San Francisco Shock. All 4 of those teams are ranked in like the top 5, top 6 of everybody's power rankings. And then Seoul Dynasty, they're a wild card. They could either be great or they could be mid-tier, but my guess is they're going to be great. And then the last week, they finally catch a break with Paris Eternal and Florida Mayhem, but by the time they get to these matches, they are going to be slaughtered and beaten down. They could win the Paris Eternal one just because Paris also has a tough schedule, so that's going to be a toss-up. But their match against Florida Mayhem, I don't see them winning. Florida Mayhem, they have an easier schedule. And just overall, I do think Florida Mayhem is slightly better. But oh my god, this schedule is unreal for the Washington Justice. These 4 teams, they all have tough schedules. But to be honest, the Washington Justice have it like 10 times worse than anybody else in the league. It's gonna suck for them. Unfortunately, I do see them losing every single match with the chance of maybe beating Paris Eternal. But that's it. If you guys did enjoy this video and you agree with me that these schedules are tough and are going to be a deciding factor in whether or not these teams do make it to the playoffs at the end of the day, leave a comment down below, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to my channel for more daily uploads. Thank you for watching, guys. I really wanted to make this video just so everybody would see how tough some of these schedules are compared to the other teams. But yeah, that's it for me, guys. I'm out of here. Peace.